Hello, everyone. Good evening. This is another Thursday night live where we come live into your home and we thank you for welcoming us so warmly. Tonight, we're going to be discussing a very relevant topic, and it has to do with COVID 19 and going back to school. We have an expert with us. Her name is Jean Ascent. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Amity LLC. Jane started her profession as a teacher in Miami-Dade County. She served to protect the community as a state correctional officer, and she has continued her work as targeting case manager, therapist, and parenting educator, serving high-risk families involved in DCF. Jane really enjoyed her position as an on-site child therapist, which led her to passion to work as a clinical counselor with at-risk youth, which is very important, and their families. Today, Jean still works as a clinical director, supervising residential and non-residential counselors. Jean's extensive qualification as well as her commitment to continued education contribute to her ever expanding knowledge and practice in the mental health field. All right. So we have Jean with us. We're going to bring her on camera. Let us welcome her to the broadcast this afternoon. Jean, we welcome you. Welcome to this broadcast where we are so happy to have you. And so you can communicate with us in terms of what's going to go on. Because we know this time of the year, normally we would be going about getting our school supply. This is the end of July, we know beginning of August, mid-August, school would already been started. We would be looking for that tax-free day and so on and so forth, scurrying about getting all things. So what is going on now with COVID-19 and with the online schooling that we're going to be doing with the children, and how is that going to affect them in terms of adjusting back to the new school year, because a lot of them were expecting to go back. So what's going to happen in your and introduce yourself to the viewers and talk to us a little bit about that.
Good afternoon, Pastor Bethany. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about such an important and crucial topic. We recognize that this is trying time. These are new times for everyone. So a lot of individuals already suffered anxiety. So this is a time with the events that actually worsen some of the underlying condition. And others who were doing fine, this is a new thing for them. So it's taking people time to adjust. And we want to make sure that we're not just losing beside the medical part of the pandemic, but like we're keeping the most important things, the most important thing. And in all fairness, the most important things is like our mind, our health, so we want to make sure we address that. Today, I just wanted to give you guys a little snapshot on what is anxiety, how it looks like, most importantly, in adults. And I say in adult first and foremost because the adults are the one in charge of the children. So if we're as adult are doing a bad job managing our own anxiety, we're not helping the youngsters managing theirs. So we want to make sure we manage ours so then we can help them manage theirs. So we can all thrive. And if we have some time, we can discuss how that's gonna translate into back to school, especially virtual schooling, which we had a test trial and most of us fell miserably. So we want to make sure we address that and we are equipping those who are following through with some skill set, some techniques that they can implement. And of course, for me, the most important thing is to release the stigma of anxiety and depression as like something that people are choosing or a cap out. It is real. It affects every aspect of your life. So just taking that few minutes a day or that hour a week to check in with a counselor actually will benefit you in all aspect of your life. So thanks again for the opportunity. I look forward to the discussion. Pass, you muted. I can't hear you. I think we lost the pastor. So, oh,
Yes.
there she is. Oh, you're
Okay,
back.
yes, yes. So, what in essence is anxiety? Can you give us the clinical definition of anxiety? Because I noticed you said that without knowing, like even unknowingly, if we're not careful, as the children get ready to go back to school, like virtual school online, we did have a tryout from March until the end of the year, and we see how we had to navigate. But a lot of kids were hoping to go back to school to get back with their little friends, to
Mm-hmm.
share their experience, how it's been so far. But unfortunately, that might not happen. So, what is really anxiety, and in kids specifically, clinically?
So, clinically, anxiety is a stage that our mind goes to whenever it experiences a unfamiliar territory. So, you enter to a room, it's cold or it's hot, whatever that's outside of your norm, and especially when the outcome, you enter the room, maybe there's a door closed, you're not sure what's outside, what's behind that door. There's a sense of unknownness, like you don't know what's gonna be the outcome of something. Our mind goes to this feeling of worrying, anxiousness, and at unease. So that time of transition from what I know and what I don't know, that freak out moment, right? That temporary freak out moment is the stage of anxiety. The problem is if you don't have enough coping skills, your mind can stay there for a very long time. And then you become panic, and then the mind translate that signal through the rest of your body, and it start intervene and interact negatively with a lot of things. And we'll go in detail on what those things look like in adult as well as in children. And some of the same symptoms, like we talk about, one of the big sign of anxiety is agitation. Agitation in an adult is different than agitation in a child, like especially in our culture. And I understand this is a Haitian community, correct, platform. So
Mhm.
la culture pano nous dit si moun nan maledve, li fréquent, realite the kid is anxious. They're worried, or nous dit ah e grand moun nan ye, ay konsa tel el toujou chimè. No, that person is really worried about something. If I shimè, there's like a sense of I don't know what's gonna happen. We see that a lot in the elder population, especially those that didn't really do a good job raising their kids. And then they have to experience that role, that change and reverse role, where they're like, you know, kounye la, li bral pase tout chimè, tout sa mte kon fè yo, tout madishon sa yo, sou mwen wal tobe. So there's a sense of like, what's going to happen? Is so and so really going to take care of me the way I need to be? Or can I really be dependent on that person? And those type of anxieties show up differently. Everyone just, ah, etel fweka, but it's not. It's anxiety, you know? So anxiety shows up differently. So we wanted to talk about the adult because really the adult are the one in charge. And as an adult, we basically the driver. In the home, you are the captain of that property. You're the captain of that lifestyle. And I always like frequently in my personal household, I explained that I may not be able to control what's happening outside of the world, but together we could determine what's happening inside of our home. And what's happening outside doesn't necessarily need to have direct influence on what's happening with us. So this is a great time to exercise that because of isolation
Mm-hmm.
and the pandemic kind of forced us to stay in quarantine. So
Yes.
sou pat reme moun ou te avel la ou pat abitue avel, this is a good time to figure out each other and create your own sense of normalcy, you know?
Yes.
Learning who's a morning person, who's not a morning person, who needs coffee, who
Mm-hmm.
needs, tea before you can approach kind of thing. So then you can, create some normalcy. Therefore, you start creating some level of pattern and you know what to expect. So, depuis komanse kreye pattern, ou geta konen ki sa ki bral vini, ki sa ka fe, you feel like you're in control, then
Mm-hmm.
the mind start to settle, you know? Ekwe lon blende, ka blende. I tell me like there's so many things happening. There's policy, there's, medical changes, there's a lot of research, there's your anxiety, the children's anxiety, the neighbors, what's happening on social media, the WhatsApp messages that are so off. All of that is in a blender and it's going up, and you have to try to catch it and figure out what's real, what's not, what's relevant to you, what's not. And that's a difficult task. One, especially hard if you are anxious already.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, Jean, that you in that sense you have to create your own filter? You have to have your own sets of values. So right off the bat, you know what goes and what doesn't go, regardless of what outside is doing. But inside, within that little cocoon of the family, you have your own filter to filter out all that information, like you said, and to take what's good and leave out what's bad and what could be, in essence, toxic for the family's well-being, for the family's welfare.
Absolutely. And you say the key word there, your own personal set of values. So, for example, there's a lot of talk out there that the pandemic is BS. The pandemic is not real. It's a governmental issue thing so people can make money. It's blah, blah, blah. So then you have to question yourself what matters to you and what doesn't. For
Mhm.
me personally, it could be whichever. I have a personal value enough to protect myself, to keep myself. So I have to determine my own sense of reality. What can I do to make sure that I isolate myself? I minimize the risk of exposure to myself. If it's real, great. I did the best I could to protect myself. If it's not, what was a few adjustment to my lifestyle, right? And
Right.
then from that, I'm also modeling the behavior for the rest of my household. And then as a household, we determine what is our core value. That includes maybe me wearing a mask around somebody else in my household that has underlying condition. Maybe the science initially say, yeah, those people at exposure, the grandparents. That may mean I minimize my visits to my grandparents or my elderly family members because of what science said. Now science has changed its mind. I can either choose to follow the science or I can make a value, a personal call. So you have to determine what's important to you. A lot of people have determined what's important to them is getting that money. So exposing themselves so they can be at home sick and collect unemployment. If that's what they want to value, that's what they want to value. For me personally, I think I'm worth a little bit more alive than dead. So I can't risk that. But if it's your value, that's what it is. Other people are taking it as an opportunity to travel because flights are a lot cheaper, or to rent a boat and have these big extravagant parties because that's what their values are. So you have to determine what that value is for you, and then for your household, and then from there you go to your social group. You expand that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So, in terms of anxiety itself, you mentioned that it is fear. Let's say you get into a room and there's a door, for instance, and you fear what's out there. You don't know, therefore you become a little bit anxious. You become anxious, and but that's which is like a normal type of preservation for us. But if it stays too long with us, then it
That's
becomes
how it's become. Yeah.
right. So, and you mentioned agitation. Anxiety in adults, signs of anxiety in adults may not be the same in children. So, what are the signs in each adult
Okay.
and children, and how can you establish, well, this is a sign of anxiety in this child that's going to virtual school?
So let's start with the adults, right? So in adults, one of the big sign is the excessive worrying. You ever hear like somebody ask you the same question 5 times? It's like there's the unbelief, like I need to make sure this is there, this is there. Like akile do video call, akile do video, like muna anxious, li worried. And actuellement là, nous gagnons paquet raison pour nous capable pas sentir nous trop à l'aise dans la situation parce que as an adult you have additional stressor that a kid may not have. There's worrying about finance. A lot of people are losing their jobs. Some of us were on unemployment and that has cut off. Some of us have experienced time shortage at work. So there's a lot of worrying, and that worrying can be because of finance, because of loved ones. And même là, on dit que ça, parents haïtiens, pas tolérance, nous pas affectionate, but we worry about the children and the rest of the family, how are things managing. So there's like that level, on bagay qui t'a passé ou t'a pas adressé facile, actuellement là, living plus difficile. So you worry a bit longer about it. So the timeline, feeling agitated, like the person get upset very easily. And it's worse because naturally living in South Florida, the summertime always increase the level of agitation because the summer with heat, with the heat increases certain triggers in your body that naturally you get agitated. So with the heat, people have been by themselves, maybe they've been with other people they don't really like. The agitation level has definitely increased. So that's with adults. Restlessness is another one. Because you're worrying, you're not resting. So, lè pou te ka al dormi, wap reflechi, vese kwa deme si deve tel baga a fet, or sa ka fet next week, ou bien especially with those WhatsApp messages, you can fall into the hole so easily. Parce que on information, wal verifiye sa, ou tombe lan sa, ou tombe lan sa. Next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you researching conspiracy theories. So we want to make sure like we address that, and not and the result of that is naturally a level of fatigue. um and that's something that I've been as a supervisor working so much more with my clinicians, because that fatigue comes also from working from home. Before we would request to work from home because we want to sleep in, you have too much laundry to do, like, yeah, I'll get that done between minutes, but you can't anymore because since it's become the new norms, you working and you're actually working longer, because instead of saying I'm gonna take my 1 hour lunch break, and usually we take the lunch break, you go hang out with a friend, you go do something, you walk around. These days you're sitting one space, so your body is not getting the movement it needs. You're not getting the separation between work and home, because I don't care how good you are with that, it is hard to separate those two. So you end up working longer hours, and and then the kids are stuck at home with you too. They don't get to go to work, and at this point they've already passed their summer break, and just as much as we're a little ready for them to go, they've been ready to get out because they're sick of us. So that then you're just too tired, and we passed out, and when you passed out you never get to that deep realm of sleep. So your mind is never fully shut down. What's happening is your body is just basically on overload and it's shutting off. That's what that is. And you could stay on that shut off for 10, 12 hours. You're not resting because the mind is still operating behind the scene, or the body is still like going in circles. So that creates a fatigue. And that fatigue is again another sign of anxiety, because then you're tired, you feel heavy, you just like you feel like that's the best. There's that usa tu nie usa tu nie
Usa tu ennuyé.
E
with
on nou yet, yeah, en avek an nou yon sa, ou vin gen agitation nan retourne fasil, van pase tou apre, ou soti ta balon kalot. It's like, it's the
yes,
wind, man.
yes,
So it's just because you anxious, ou pa konen ki sa deme si deve pote, so naturellement, we are rational being. The goal is to identify, intervene and create solution. So, lego problem, nou pa kon solusyon, nou pa kon koman wala afekte nou, sa vraiment difficile pour nous manage. And which creates a difficulty concentrating. So, even pa, même l'on travaille 10, 12 hours on task qui te kon pour une état, des états. Now it's taking you 2 days because you can't stay focused.
yes, yes, yes. That is so true. That is very true. That is
So
very true.
we find that very difficult, and people think, oh, you're working from home, you're just distracted. No, I'm anxious, I'm annoyed, like, so I can't stay focused. And especially with these Zooms, there's so much screen time, you know because we talk about screen time and we're like, yeah, but you spend all that time on Facebook or Instagram, but it's a different platform. And some of us go there for different reasoning. It's not work. I go away from work and social media. I don't join social media for work.
Or
So now that they're merging, it's like, where does the fun start and the work ends?
right,
You were
right.
going to say something?
Yes, yes. So what are the symptoms, the main symptoms of of stress or anxiety in adults that we could actually pinpoint to and say, okay, this is this and this is that, or this is not it. Let me not confuse like a regular not having enough sleep type of reaction than like the actual anxiety.
So trouble falling or staying asleep, that insomnia, when you have just experienced insomnia because the mood is off or something, you're just there counting ship is what we called it, right? You're just counting ship. There's nothing in your mind. You just can't fall asleep. But when you are unable to fall asleep because you have anxiety, you're not counting ship, you counting dollar bills on your account, you worrying about the colors, you worry, there's a concept, there's the
Mhm.
content available in your mind. So that's one of the ways to determine the difference. And then throughout the day, when you are getting agitated, it's normal to be agitated. A lot of people are very agitating to deal with, period. A lot of situations are difficult to manage and deal with, so you're gonna be agitated. But when you're agitated and you start realizing that you're experiencing muscle stiffness, that's a sign that it's because of your anxiety, because the brain is the one sending the signal to the body that wait, we're freaking out, like what's happening. So when the brain does that, the muscles don't know where to go, what to do, they are free. So physically you experience stiffness. So those
So
are
you,
some of the basic signs. And sometimes it's just asking yourself, have my basic needs have been met? So if you know you had a good night's sleep, you ate well, you slept enough, but then you agitated, or this person has done this before and you didn't have that type of reaction, then it has nothing to do with that person or the smell of their perfume or cologne. It's something within, and that's usually the anxiety. Ask yourself, have I met my basic needs today?
right, okay. And what about children? What about
So
the
for
kids?
children, yes, definitely. For children, some of them are very similar. It's just it shows up differently, right? And of course, as adults, we translate that differently, right? Because we have different expectations. Especially in our community, we don't feel like children have feelings, and it's contrary. They have more feelings,
Mhm.
and they are more expressive of their feelings. It's up to us to acknowledge it, help them identify it, and help them deal with it. So when we don't recognize their feelings or we don't honor their feelings, it creates a bigger problem. So they get agitated. For me, it's a matter of history. What history do you have with that child? Have you put in the time? If this kid is somebody that used to pick up after themselves, used to be receptive to instruction, now I have to tell them 3, 4 times, I tend to back off a little bit. as opposed before I wouldn't, because they are adjusting as well as we're adjusting, but we don't want to give too much leeway to the point where we worsen the behavior. So like when dealing with kids, it's kind of like when you're holding an egg, right? You hold it too tight, it's gonna smash and crash,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You hold it too loose, it's gonna slip and crash. So you have to find that balance, and the way you determine that balance is based on the history you've had with that child. So one, just like the adults, the kids get agitated. They get agitated with you, they get agitated with themselves, they get agitated even with the television these days. So what I do, what I recommend parents to do is create a to-do list with them, either on a weekly basis or on a daily basis. These are the tasks that I need you to get done today. These are the things that I expect of you for today. These are some of the cool things. Don't forget to add positive things on that list. It
Right.
cannot be just a chore list. These are the rewards. Once that's completed, this is what we get to do for fun, or what we can reward ourselves as. And then give them a timeline, but back off and allow them to do it, because there's a natural anxiety in kids, especially in the summer, because especially as Caribbean parents, it's like kids cannot just sit around. It's like, why are you sitting around? There's plenty. I cherche bagay pou fè. Vale bagay ki gen la kala pou fè. I cherche bagay pou fè. So that's why you'll see some kids, they're like watching TV, they're doing something. Yo tan de briyon, gran moun ap vini, yo kou leve. That's anxiety at its core. Is that they don't know what's gonna come. Si son kalot, si son kout sandal, si son kout rel. So they have to be prepared. Like, so let's minimize those, because we don't need that right now. And just give them what they need to do and expect a timeline, and hopefully they can comply. And if that list is not completed today, work with them, because we're molding them, we're molding them to be receptive to that. This is a new experience for all of us. We don't want it to make it a miserable experience for them, because the effect for us is minimal, because we had so many years of experience of what normalcy was. This is their normalcy right now. So it's up to us to determine if we're going to give them a positive experience, or we're going to monopolize it and make it a miserable time. And that anxiety, that depression, that intervention, that negative impact in the relationship you have with the children will last a lifetime, So we
Mhm.
want to mold that properly. They have poor focus right now. So the tel albe, it's gonna take 5, 6, 7 times this time, because just like you, they're not focused. It's like, at least before in the summer, we know, like in my household, we do summer camp the first month of summer, we travel the second month of summer. Right now, it's all been a blur. and,
Right.
and even if we're not traveling during summer camp, there's weekend, there's family gathering, there's sleepovers, there's local exploration going on. Right now, there's none of that. So all they have is books, television, and us. So même là, nous sommes capables de comparer jan nou leve Haiti, like Haiti, ou ka la kou, ou ka la there. Even during the pandemic, ti moun yo ka jwe la kou, kay pa sou kay, tout fami konen, espesyalman sou rete lon peyi ou bien lon zon kote se fami a ka achete bon kote lot, everybody know each other, everybody, it's family. But here they cannot exercise that. So be patient with them, because they are not having a easy time concentrating. Um, and that happens in school as well, especially when the kid is being bullied. They have anxiety, and then they are unable to focus. And a lot of time that's translated inappropriately into intellectual delayed, or they quick to put those kids on IEP, when the reality is he or she's being bullied, or he or she is anxious about a teacher. Sometimes it could be something as simple. The teacher reminded that child of someone who wasn't the nicest person to them. And we miss those red flags a lot. So we need to do a better job at capturing that.
Um,
Um, go ahead.
yes, yes, Gina. I just love the way you put it, and you've put it in such a language that is culturally proper. And I see what you're saying when let's say Nashita, and then because you told them just find something to do, find something. Well,
Yes.
they're gonna look around, they're not gonna find anything to do. Yo pa jam jwen an rien pou yo fè simply because they want to relax. So sa di an, se nou menm ki pou fèl fasil pou yo kounye an, pou nou gon list de bagay pou yo fè. Okay, okay, do this. Just like when
Mhm.
you have an emergency and you are in a group of people, you say somebody call 911, where nobody's gonna call 911. When they say
Exactly.
you call 911, then that person's gonna call 911. So if you don't tell them what to do, they're gonna be like, I don't see anything to do. Well, pa wanyen pou fè, non pa wanyen pou m'fè. So that's when trouble starts. So we have to make it easy. So when you do notice, a behavior change, when there's behavioral change in the child, what are the I don't want to say the coping mechanisms, but what do you do at that point when you notice like, hey, it's been 2 3 or a week, this week hasn't been so good, but the next week is getting a little bit worse, and you notice real behavioral change. What do you
So
do?
I I encourage everyone to address your household as an island, right? So you are your own little island, your own little country. And for a country to, I was a history teacher. Okay, for a country to fully operate, it needs to have different skill set, different roles. So it's likewise we as a family, as a household, we need that. So figure out what is everybody in the household good, what is their capacity. I cannot ask my 9-year-old to pay the mortgage, but I can ask her to put out the trash. So once we figure out everybody's role and everybody's in agreement, in order for this house to work appropriately, everybody needs to do their part. Then everybody doing their part and communicating, spending time together is how we get to know one another. And that can be either pick one meal a day that you guys share together, or pick a moment, an activity throughout the day that happens, or some people even do like family group chat because everybody have different schedule in the household. But whatever it is, create an opportunity for togetherness, because that's what's going to help nurture the relationship. Once the relationship is nurtured, there's respect, there's honesty, there's safetyness. With the safety is when the kid is going to come and tell you A, B, and C is wrong, or that's when they're going to feel comfortable and safe enough around you to tell you, Mom, I didn't like the way you were yelling at me, or the way you asked me to do this, or Dad, can you wash your own dishes? Like, little things like that, because these little things are what's gonna be beneficial. Because in reality, even as a mental health service provider, my safety plans with the crisis clients that are suicidal, actively suicidal, I don't come up with a safety plan for them. They're the one who tell me what their safety plan is. This is how they know they're being triggered. This is who they can reach out to. This is what they would want each person to do to be supportive to them during those times. So when we identify the child or the person, because it could be the child, it could be ourselves, it could be our spouses or another family member, we have to have that conversation. Hey, I realize you're not yourself. Check in with one another. Is everything okay? Is there anything I can do to be supportive to you right now? And that person will tell you, I just need 5 minutes. I need you off my back. Could you give me a cup of coffee? May I, use this or that? Like whatever it is, they will tell you. And especially if you've been spending enough time with them, you will be able to tell the shift and mood and interaction.
Absolutely. Someone saying my daughter's 5 years old, going to kindergarten, and
Mm.
she's anxious that the workload will be more for her daughter and for her, since schooling now will be strictly virtual. How?
Kindergarten is rough. I started teaching as kindergarten. It is rough. Let's just say I realized it wasn't for me because by nap time I needed a nap every day. It is rough. So they Yeah, with that anxiety, it's you have to talk with a kid with honesty about it. Hey, I know we've been really excited about kindergarten and meeting new friends because they've been in daycare. And in daycare, they have all age groups. And worse, if the child has been at home prior to the kindergarten, they've been with around adults. So this is a time they've been looking forward to meeting new friends, meeting teachers, doing all these beautiful, creative things. And I'm sorry right now we can't do that, but what do you think we can do together right now to make that space? So even if it's like a little corner in your house, a little corner in their room, you have to dedicate an area and say, well, guess what? We get to build our own classroom. Go to Pinterest. I love Pinterest. Like there are so many artistic things they will show you at Pinterest, and you guys can turn it to arts and craft time and set up that little area in her room or his room or in the around the house that you can dedicate to that. Also, I highly encourage having portable play sets and then identify 2 or 3 spots throughout the house that you can dedicate to schooling, because at school they don't just stay in one classroom. They go outside, they go to this corner and that corner. We don't have the luxury, unless you're one of those people who have amazing spacing and can have different playrooms dedicated to the kids. We need to create that illusion, but there's a lot of things, especially on Amazon, that will give you that opportunity. There are play sets that once you finish playing with them, it comes in a bag already. You just shove everything there and zip it up. It stays stored and organized. There are things that you can flip over, and especially with those arts and craft, a lot of them you could do the arts and craft with the child and then frame them, and so then that way you just switch the framing around and it's a brand new classroom. So but have the honest conversation. uh Honor their disappointment, because this is very disappointing time for them. Honor that disappointment and share that level of disappointment, that you were excited for them, that you know it is a disappointing time, and but then there are options. That's the biggest thing with anxiety, is people, when you're freaking out, you feel like I'm at my ends wits, I've lost it all. But like, no, there's always a plan B, C, D, and F. If not, we start multiplying, and we are very creative beings. So let's come up with an alternative, because you never know. They might find out, you know what, I love this. You might find out you love homeschooling. Personally, it's not for me.
So, in essence, let's start getting prepared right now, right?
Exactly.
Get prepared, and that, I think that's just a very that's a wonderful idea, to set up something, a corner, or that portable idea, to get the child's mind kind of with, they have great imagination, and just not like that one spot every day. I think that's great. So we should be getting ready, getting prepared now, and make it fun, like you said, to build their own classroom, right, at home.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, I think that's great. So what are the risk factors for some anxiety disorders? Who or are there such a thing? Is there a population or specific things, or, well, what are the risk factors? Are there?
Parents, frustrating parents are one of the big factors for kids. And because if we're not managing our feelings, we're not managing our own worries or own anxiety, we're freaking them out. Like, I have kids literally telling me they try to kill themselves because they feel like that they're trying to relieve their parents of the extra burden of financial support. Like, what do you mean? Like, a parent rather go beg in the street instead of bearing a kid, but they don't see it that way. They don't translate it. So something as simple as, whenever we're talking about finance, have this conversation away from the kids, unless you're trying to have the conversation with them. And that is something I highly encourage you to do, but age appropriately. You cannot be talking so generally where they can overhear it, especially if it's a negative talk, especially if it's part of domestic violence or it's part of a problematic in the home. these type of things, they consume them and then they assume responsibility for it. So that's one thing. When we worry about like our own personal health or the children's health, just those negative talk, find a way to have that conversation in a healthy and transparent manners with them that's age appropriate. Because if we don't educate them about it, we're not having an honesty, and they just hear the complaints, they consume them, and that is a trigger for them, because then they think they're part of the problem, and then when they start reacting, we misinterpret that, and it creates another thing. Like another big sign for anxiety in kids, they get headaches. We get headaches as adults when we're over worrying about something. But when they get their headaches, we dismiss it a lot of the time, because we know headaches, we know migraine, and we could say, turn off the light, leave me alone, I have a headache, I don't want to be bothered. But imagine a 6 year old, how they explain a headache. So again, it goes back to knowing the child, knowing their routine and their activity, and realizing she or he is not behaving normal or as usual, and then we try to figure, hey, is everything okay? I encourage every family to have feelings. I know I'm a clinician, so there's feelings all over my fridge, but just those little things, or having the toys that have a human body, because we want to teach kids the real names. There's so many benefits in teaching kids the proper body parts. And that's not just from my background as a trauma specialist, because when it comes to sexual assault, that's one of the big reason why kids and families cannot experience justice, because legally they don't identify the proper terms, so then it's not evident. But that's another big thing. It's like anxiety, you have a headache, the kid has a headache, or they have tummy ache, and they cannot explain that to you, because either they don't feel comfortable, because you already agitated over there. How can they come and tell you? Parce qu'on va dire, ah, go, achète un bagay au manger. And it's like, no, I'm anxious. Like, what's gonna happen?
Right.
So we wanna provide them some support with that, and just continue to learn on the sign and recognize. It's so important to validate their perspective, but it's hard because most of us don't even acknowledge and validate our own. So it's really difficult.
Wow. I just love the way you put it. And there's that little sense of humor there, even though you are saying some very deep things, very important things, but you know how to swing it and put
Mhm.
that little humor there. That's so key to our community, to the Haitian culture. All right. So someone is saying video games. She disagrees with letting them play because she thinks that encourages laziness. So, what do you think? She says,
Oh,
being
it's
too hard
contrary.
or too insensitive.
It
So,
is contrary. That is a common myth that video games encourage laziness. Um, in reality, there are amazing skill set these kids are learning from playing video games. Now, for me, it's all about content of video game. Uh, I don't like brutal, like graphic things. But there are so many other video games that the kid can play and they can work, because they don't need to be shooting cars or learning how to break into a car or steal and rob a bank. Those auto theft type of video games to play video games. So ask them to teach you. I promise you, any parent who spend an hour with a child, really being receptive to that child teaching you about what they're playing, you will learn the value of video games. They learn a lot of skills. We just talk about how they cannot stay focused. You ever seen a kid play video game for the whole day? They will stay focused. So they learn how to concentrate by playing the video game. They pay attention to details. They're working so many of their fine and motor skills while they're playing. But most importantly, what I have found as a clinician to be powerful in that video game is the community that they are building. A lot of them are not playing by themselves, so they playing with peers. When you are snapping on them, when they are in their bedroom overhearing the domestic violence, when they are feeling discouraged, they get in there. Yes, they're talking about building this, breaking this down, but they building their own little community and they trust it. I about 2 years ago, a quick example, I had a kid that was traditionally, we would translate from a perfect family. Father was an art dealer, international art dealer. Mother was a MD, and the child lived a very comfortable life with beautiful home. He had home theater. He had, nice pool, like beautiful home. But there was no community within that household. So he felt like he just existed. His words were, we just exist in this house. Nobody living together in this house. We just exist. So the parents had different schedules. So everybody was in and out. He was never left without a meal. All meals were properly prepared, well balanced, international cuisine in that household. They attended a lot of social events together, well dressed all the time, drove nice car. He was already being taught how to drive, but he didn't feel like the family talked to him. Nobody got to know him. It was l'école, la caille, l'église, l'école, la caille, l'église, and the status that they had to keep, where he tried to kill himself in 2 occasions. And by the time I got to work with him, his safety plan, the reason why he did not kill himself is because of the community he had built and the video game group that he had. He felt like they play roles. So there's like, it's just like I'm saying, we are homies an island, and the video game, they are creating their own sense of reality. So if anything, if you feel like the child is playing too much video game, it's an opportunity for you to talk to them about the video game they're playing. Why do they like this video game and not that video game? Can they teach you how to play? And as you engage them, they will start talking to you. And then you'll start to get to know them and know what's important to them, what is hurting them and what's not. Because I discourage parents who want to dismiss the video game. There's a lot of value into that.
Okay. So uh, in your expert years of working as a clinician, how prevalent is clinical anxiety in our Haitian community? Have you experienced
oh
that?
my God. Mental health in general is huge in our community. It's just that we are so resilient that it is dismissed. There's a big saying that I'm tired of being strong. Like, we are so strong, we are so resilient that we don't acknowledge or pain or traumas or mental health or anxiety or depression. We don't acknowledge it just because we've been managing for so long so well. We've been masking it for so long for so well. But just imagine the level of prosperity, the level of wellness and healing as a country, as a nation, as a being that we would experience if we actually went through those things and address them. We don't, and it actually limits our potentials as being. And Haitian people, oh my God, we are extremely intelligent, creative, artistic, and that's visual and performing art. But we so much pain and oppression, and with those comes, trauma and anxiety. It's like chaque 3 ans, my maison dit 5 quand même, chaque 3 ans, everybody in Haiti experience a manic episode of anxiety. It just, we read it differently. Nous disons, yo toujours à parler de politique. C'est pas de politique, y a peut-être de parler de politique. Problem now, they are anxious about the unknown of the country state. So everybody's putting out their best theories and proposing their best solutions, just trying to make sense of it. But the reality is everybody's in a manic episode because politics is it's inconsistent to the list. And that's just one simple way as a country we see it every day.
In essence, what you're saying, the resilience is a good thing, but for us not to also recognize that we can be overloaded that we can be overwhelmed at time, that good thing to be resilient, to be strong, to focus on others and to cater to others' needs. We take care in our community, we take care of everybody here and back home, making sure that the family, if we have relatives in Haiti, sending money here and there. So the resilience itself can actually become negative if we don't.
Yeah, if you look at the recent temporary revolution that took place last year, right? Uh, as a country, we've gone through so much chaos, right? So it's normal to see somebody get shot. It's normal to experience the passing of someone. It's like, Haiti, on l'a dit Haiti, déblozay Haiti, manifestation Haiti, tout bagay sa yo. But lò gade moun yo kounye la kap rache moun a manchet, kap, fizye ti moun, kap fe kadejak sou ti bebe, tout, moun kap bloke machine kap pote manje, just pour yo kapab take a gang stand. You said this is cold-hearted, behavior, but the reality is it's because it's been their norm for so long. It take away from the human part of it. The empathy is no longer there because we've learned to normalize such behavior. We've learned to justify such behaviors, and you don't want to raise a nation without empathy, because they always say a good leader or a good king is one, that can make the harsh decisions and stuff. Like, no, the best decisions need to have a little bit of brain, a little bit of heart, because it's not just it affects people, people, and you're never going to be able to please everyone, so you need to be able to have both. So when we are so rigid and so immune to the trauma, yes, we're building resiliency, but we're also building coldness. And then deme si leve na ple, neg la pa karesan, maman twa harsh ak ti moun nan. Well, the whole culture build us that way. There's no way, no, mbabe ou pa, gen moun ki fe tout vi yo pa jam tan de kote maman yo, a papa yo ap di yo, I love you. They never witness their parents hug each other, let alone say I love you to them. So then you're like, how did they have kids? Or
Mhm.
how did they don't even bother to have the talk, right, with us? So it's like there's a lot of questions, and that leads to its own problem. But that misinterpretation of resiliency can translate and affect so many other levels of our lives that it's unbelievable. We want to say, it's not a weakness to have hard days. It's not a sign of weakness to be anxious. You're not stupid if you're feeling anxious right now. This is different time. These are different expectations. There's a lot of things happening. It's okay to feel anxious. Let's feel anxious and step back, address it with someone or calculate it within your household and move forward. But if you deny it and then you stay in that sense, next thing you know, you become another makut na foyer, right? You just become another cold-hearted person because you're so self-centered about, like, where's your mask? Like, why aren't you protecting yourself? Or no about this, yes about that. You become too rigid, and it takes away from that human experience.
Okay, right. Okay, is snacking a lot? If a kid is snacking a lot, is that a sign of anxiety?
Yes, yes. How many of us have had some quarantine weight added on? Because everybody expressed that anxiousness. Like, remember, a big definition of anxiety is that uncertainty, that anxiousness. So the kids will be snacking a lot. Now, the trick for that is the kids don't shop for themselves. So when you go shopping, shop consciously. I like snacking. I like snacking on crunchy things, right? So instead of crunching on chips, I like hot Cheetos, right? So instead of snacking on hot Cheetos, I might want to get something like popcorn instead. I still get that crunch sensation, but I don't get the crunch calories. Or even if I like sweets, maybe instead of snacking and having ice cream in summer, which is like heaven, I'll do smoothies, green smoothies, and freeze that instead, or just do activities that required some level of physical intervention that would balance out. Like I can never give up ice cream, so like I have to work out. So find ways and activities you can do that gives you physical intervention that would balance it out. But definitely overeating is a huge sign of anxiety.
So what about when you just came from the grocery store, you bought everything that you could think of possibly and spent all that money, and the kid they look in the fridge, they look in the pantry, and they're like, there's nothing to eat. So it's like there's nothing to eat. What do you, what I mean, what do you call that? What do you do? There's nothing to
Because
eat, and you know that you got
remember they
everything
can't they,
that is
remember they
snack.
can't remember a big sign of that anxiety is they can't stay focused. So it doesn't matter if they see the bread and the peanut butter right there next to each other. The concept of doing a peanut butter sandwich is not gonna come because they can't stay concentrated. They want something that's ready. So before the grocery runs or en route to the grocery, I prefer before. Do a list of what are some things we want to do. I try to do like the menu, like give me one thing or two things this week you would like to see in the menu, and then you add them to the list. So then that way just, and again, they may not know what's going to happen in school in 6 weeks from now, but they know this week they're going to have some lasagna in that menu.
Tacos, yeah,
You know,
have
so
tacos.
tacos, we can't go out with tacos. So giving them this little sense of control actually empowers and minimize the anxiety level. And
Okay.
if not, if anything, I have an app. It's called All Recipe. I love apps. You tell them if you have one or two ingredients, put it in that app. It will come up with 1,000 of different things you could do with one or two ingredients. Involve them in the process. Especially in a Haitian household, like they want some control. This is not the time for that. So teach them, because you never know. Nobody knows how to make your favorite recipe. So share those moments, create these moments with them, explore the unknown territories together so we don't freak out.
I just love the way you, I love the way you put things together, and I love your accent.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I give great shout out to my daughter, my goddaughter here. All right, she's a kindergartner. She's going into kindergarten, la grande. Okay, she's gonna be this
Demoiselle Kunyela,
demoiselle,
demoiselle.
demoiselle. Yes. So, Jean, if you have anything else to add, what are the I know you say I mean, you're a clinician. This is your domain. This is what you do. This is as a profession, and you have all these mood little pictures on your fridge and stuff. But what are some resources that somebody can have, you know, handy to tap into um, if you were to notice different types of things and changes in behavior? Right, you know, what type of resources are there in the community?
Most of the schools have resource officers. So you have a parent child resource officer that provide you information. Those are usually the people who send a whole lot of papers home with the kids that we never read. A lot of these people are available by email these days. Amitié, we have social media and we try really hard to make sure the information, like a lot of companies use their social media accounts as like recruitment and like marketing. We don't, we just want to be psychoeducation, just giving positive vibe, just support. I've had some of my best intervention with absolute strangers who are not even clients, just because they send me a DM or they email me something with a question. We always have clinicians available for that, and like, I'm happy to say we have Creole speaking, French speaking, and Spanish speaking clinicians. So that's very, very helpful, because sometimes a phone call comes and I'm like, you don't say nada, but espérate, and I can put somebody else on the line for you, and like we'll figure it out. Follow different organizations. There are specialized organizations like I partner with one, especially with autism, because I'm a behavior analyst as well, that, just providing support for parents who are dealing with autistic kids. That's a whole beast within itself, especially within our Haitian community. Um, I know we don't like online, but the online is really good. But also get involved with your local government, like your local offices, because if there's something that's not available, that's where you go to say, hey, I need an after school program, or I need a corner in the community where I can ask questions, or I can come and get a flyer about something. We also have 311. You could call 311 and you ask you whatever the problem is, especially age group. There are a lot of programs that are available, and they would give you the available programs that are for free, the contacts and stuff like that. And most importantly, we hate tapping into that, but it's the biggest investment we make is our healthcare insurances. Healthcare insurances cover a whole range of services, including behavioral health. So a lot of those behavioral issues and mood disorders, your insurance cover that. If they don't, you could advocate and they will cover it. We also, you have your employer. A lot of employers, and that's something I try to educate parents about all the time. It is an employer's goal to make sure that you are good at home, because if you are good at home, your household is well cared for, that anxiety is no longer there, then you can stay focused and do the job they're paying you for. So they have what's called an employment assistance program, and a lot of company offer that. And you just call your HR person and you request some services, and they will link you with an organization that provide that service. We are one of the organizations, but there are so many others. And then that service cover more sometimes than your insurance cover, because that service can be, you know what, you just need some parenting support. It could be, you know what, I think my marriage is in the merge of ending and I want to give it one last shot, or I want to end it smoothly. So I need some support making that transition. And, and they will provide such support, because we want to make sure you are taken care of. You are the one in charge. You are the world. Like, there's no world without you. Like we all have to do a better job at taking care of ourselves, so we can take care of those that we love. And together, like as a community, as a nation, as a culture, we can start experiencing some healing and some wellness.
Okay. Thank you, Jean. Someone, I think, in closing, um, says that uh, I don't agree with the statement that video games help the kids. I know you talked about helping them in terms of eye and hand coordination, that helps. But can you expound on that?
There's a lot of physiological and neurological changes that happen when we're playing a video game. Just like how you have certain people who cannot do math, but they can cook the hell out of anything. So that's math, because you got to measure things. So you just change the perspective. You change the concept, the content, but the concept is the same. You may not agree with video game based on the stigma. Like I said, every parent, is up to you, but I want to tell you there are values of it, not to dismiss it, because if you pay attention to the type of video games they are playing and you are involved with that, you have that dialogue, you could find out why they're interested in that, then you find out what your kid is really interested in. But there are scientifically research that have been proven for real benefit, just physiologically, neurologically, that have great benefit. And as a mental health provider, there are extreme resources and proven like benefits for the child's mental health. Just like we find other methods to digress, they find video game therapeutic, and a way for them to relax, and most importantly, a way for them to connect when they cannot connect with you at home. So you don't want the kids to play video game, find out why they're interested in the video game and find a way to meet that need outside of the video game, but don't just dismiss it if you're not going to replace it with something more productive. No, I don't want any kid to be playing video game 8, 12 hours a day. Like, that's ridiculous. But there's value to it. Don't dismiss it. But you cannot just ignore the kid and just expect the kid to just sit at home all day. Like, that's not helpful. There's isolation. They have feelings, especially if you're not an involved parent. There's a lot of ways as parents we can improve in that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So again, we thank you, and I think we answered all the questions, and you were very clear. And again, I love the way you put it in a way that's very understandable and with a big smile on your face. And I think that is really effective. Your approach, the way you approach it, so you make our community feel um, better in grasping those truths that are behind anxiety. So again, thank you, Jane. We really thank you for joining this platform tonight. We appreciate you. We appreciate what you do for our community. We appreciate your expertise, and thanks for coming here and helping us in this season of COVID-19 as we're about to go back to school, but virtually. Thank you so much. Good night, and
Thank
God bless
you.
you. We hope to have you again sometime. Thank you so very much. You have a wonderful.
Thanks. You
Um,
too.
yes, yes. Okay, so that puts an end to our session for Thursday Night Live. It was great to have you, but we know that anxiety is real. Anxiety is real. Why? Because we are flesh and blood. Why? Because we go through everyday life, and life is hard sometimes. Life can be overwhelming when you have to juggle between work, between house, taking care of the house, taking care of the husband, taking care of the oil change in the car, doing this and doing that. And especially those of us also with ministry, it can get overwhelming. But we do have a source to tap into. So we have God, and we have prayer, we have meditation. The Word of God says, do not be anxious for anything, but in all things, even as we transition to go back to school with the children here 24/7, and us working from home, and it is very hard to work from home, we know where to take our concerns. In anything, everything, let our requests be made known unto God. All right. And the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will take that anxiousness, that worry, that anxiety away and replace it with peace that surpasses all understanding. So we hope it was very helpful to you. Um, those of you who have small children like Stephanie, who has a kindergartner, a pre-kindergartner, and a 10-year-old, I believe. We hope that these tips were helpful to you, and that you will make good of it, and you begin to practice or continue to practice good um, good things like that around the house and the family, so everything can go smoothly with the transition. All right, guys, it's been a wonderful privilege to be with you in your home again. I will see you tomorrow morning for 6 o'clock, and remember, tomorrow morning is our 31st 31 days that we were doing that fast and the prayer. We have come to an end, so we thank God for that, and I will see you in the morning. Um, okay, someone is saying that time management, which is very important. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Time management is very helpful when we manage our time in cutting that stress and cutting that anxiety. When we manage our time well, it will help. Yes, thank you, Stephanie, for that. Thank you, absolutely. Yes. So this with this, we wrap up this session, and we'll see you in the morning. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord turn his face towards you. May he give you his grace. May the Lord make his face shine upon you, and may he give you the peace that surpasses all understanding. Good night to you all, and thanks again for being with us. God bless you.